All right, sorry about that, guys. It is not time for Mike Tyree. It is time for On the Contrary with Brandon Taylor and Chris Jackson. And guys, we're going to let you take it away.
Well, I like Mike Tyree, Chris, but my name is Brandon Taylor, and I'm the chairman of the Lawrence County Republican Party.
And I'm Chris Jackson, chairman of the Lawrence County Democratic Party.
And we want to welcome you to one of our final shows. We've got this week, we've got next week, Chris. We've been in here every week for the past, I don't even know how many weeks. I've lost count, but it's about a half a dozen or better shows that we've done. And we've different topics. And of course, now we've got the backdrop back behind us. If you can get on Facebook or you want to look on
special guests.
Yeah, we got special guests right behind you. You have Miss Kamala Harris, and behind me, I have Mr. Donald J. Trump. And so
we've got somebody speaking out here.
I forgot who this guy was.
Could be Uncle Joe. He's kind of seeing how things are going to go tomorrow night.
You wanted to put him in there, and I thought it was. I actually joked as we were putting this together. You brought in some props. I brought in some props, and it looks like Joe's peeking out from behind the bushes. He is. He's peeking out from behind the bushes, and
he's kind of seeing if he maybe should stay in, or he made the right decision to drop out.
I don't think he decided that. I think they decided that.
Well, either way, we'll see how it goes tomorrow.
Right. Well, if you can get online, take a look, folks. Trump's wearing his signature working man yellow vest because he pulled up in the trash truck.
That is good.
And when I got out in the parking lot, I actually had it on, and Chris saw me coming in, and it was we had a good laugh about it.
Look at that face, man. Yeah. Only a face a mother could love.
That's it. Everybody loves him, man. What are you talking about? We had Trump there at the fair booth, Republican Party fair booth, and we had him out there, and we had hundreds of people take pictures with Donald Trump, and we just had a great time with that.
Well, it's hard to believe the election's here. You know, it's been a long, drawn-out process, I think, for everybody, and I think everybody's ready for it to be over one way or the other. And my prayer for tomorrow is that it's final, and we know who wins as soon as possible.
Yeah. Well, we kind of kicked it around, and we're just doing a more of a loose show tonight. But every week we've just kind of come in and sit down and pull topics, and you've been able to put out whatever you want to, and you're allowing me to do the same, which I appreciate. I appreciate the conversation. I think a lot of folks have received a lot of good feedback. I guess some folks probably didn't like it. It's sometimes hard to listen to someone's opinion if it opposes your own opinion.
Right.
That's not easy.
Right.
That's not easy at all. But I feel like that most people in this community have listened to the show, and I think that they appreciate the fact that you've been in here and I've been here. We've only done it to empower this community. People have asked me, what's the difference between Democrat and Republican? I think the difference is very stark in contrast. So I'm glad that you've been able to come in and give me a chance to speak, and I hope I've been fair with you.
Absolutely.
A chance.
I really enjoyed it, and if anything, like I've said, maybe we can teach folks, give them a better way of talking to their friends and family about politics. In recent years, it's gotten kind of hard to talk with people we disagreed with, but the only way this country is going to get back to where we need to be is by listening to each other and talking to each other. And
that's right.
I know I'm not perfect, and I haven't always set the best example, but the last few weeks I've really enjoyed it.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I have too. So the Senate coming up, what do you think? Which way do you think it's going to go?
I think the Senate will probably go Republican.
I do too.
From what I can tell, the Democrats have a 51-49 lead right now, and we're definitely going to lose West Virginia, where Joe Manchin is retiring. That's going to be a big pickup for you guys. And Montana, where John Tester's the incumbent Democrat, it looks like he may get beat by just a small margin. So when that flips, you're going to have the opposite of 51-49 Republican. If Tester wins, it could send it to 50-50, and who the vice president will be the tie-breaking voting.
Well, they'll be hounding those independents at that point.
Oh, absolutely.
That's independents gain power at that point. And you and I have never talked about this, but I'm glad we just kind of stepped into it. We stumbled into it just now. But whenever we have it divided right down the middle, that's when the independents gain a power.
They do.
They have no control over anything until we get divided like this.
Yeah.
So, and personally, I don't like to see the independents run with this kind of power.
Yeah, it's from my perspective, at least in our party over the last few years when we had control, it was frustrating because Joe Manchin and Kristen Sinema from Arizona and a few more would like you said, they were basically wanting to be president. They were wanting to dictate what was in bills, and if they didn't have their final say on everything, nothing got done. And you can say that that's healthy in one way by making deliberations more, but a majority should rule. I think ever who's in power, they should at least have the leeway to try to construct legislation and try to get things done.
Well, that's where you get what they term the terminology for that is pork.
Right.
And so they put a lot of pork fat in that, and it's things that are not even related to what's the bill, the spirit of the bill is going to be.
Right.
So whatever the legislation's coming out, if you're that deciding vote and you want to push for something that's going to help your constituents in your area, it's good usually just for that area.
Yep.
And so you can see a really isolated group of people really gain from that. And I understand it's good for them, but you're putting a lot of pork into those things and it costs taxpayers money.
Yeah.
A lot of times it actually it's counterproductive.
Yeah.
At best. And so I don't like to see that. So I don't like to see it be quite so divided like this. And I understand it. And it comes down to a gridlock, and you don't see a lot of legislation pass.
Right. Yeah, I mean, that's the way it's been the last several years. We've had, several bipartisan bills, CHIPS and Science, the Infrastructure Act, several big items, but there just hasn't been many, specifically you don't see much bipartisanship on things like the economy, immigration. Those are big areas where there should be some common ground, but for some reason we just can't get over that hurdle. So,
what do you think about the House?
I think the House is actually going to go to the Democrats. I really do. It seems like that some of the House seats are in Republican control right now are leaning Democratic. I believe some of the issues surrounding being pro-choice, the overturning of Roe v. Wade is playing big in those districts. And I believe Hakeem Jeffries will be the next Speaker of the House. It'll be a slim majority, probably a 4, 5, 6, 7 seat majority for the Democrats, but I think they'll take it.
I'm not a fan of Hakeem Jeffries.
I'm not a fan of Kevin McCarthy or Johnson or ever who the latest Republican speaker is.
Right. Well, so we'll see what happens on that one.
But it will be new blood. It's not going to be Nancy Pelosi or McCarthy that's been there for years. So, we have a chance to actually get some new blood in these.
The next few years is going to be interesting.
It is.
So, we're kind of stuck on this. We're still talking about the presidential election right now, but either way, whichever way it goes, what I think will happen is I believe Trump is going to get elected. I think he has a really good chance of winning tomorrow. Please, Lord, let it be. So you can pray. You canceling out my prayer over there.
Throwing up a few Hail Marys.
So here you go. But I think once that happens, I think the Democrat Party is going to have to go back to the drawing board, and I'm not sure what's going to happen with the Democrat Party after this. I think even if Harris were to be elected, I believe that the Democrat Party is still going to have to go back to the drawing board.
Yeah.
If they win this, they've done a lot of hand wringing throughout this entire process.
Right.
And I've seen a lot of hand wringing. People were excited about her right after their convention, but I think that excitement was really short lived. I was actually surprised at how short lived it was.
Well, that's typical for any politician that announces. Hers just happened to be in the middle of a campaign that had been going on for a year. We've never seen anything like that.
Never.
It's been really a truncated campaign for her, only about 3 months or so. So, I'm going to surprise you. I think she's going to win tomorrow.
Okay.
I've kind of been back and forth over the past several weeks of who would win, but I think the late breakers in this race, the undecideds, are going for her. You had an Iowa poll. Of course, I don't think Iowa's going to go for Harris tomorrow. I'll put that out there. But the substance of the poll, where Trump was up 18 on Biden earlier this year, she's now leading Trump in that poll by 4. Like I said, I don't think she's going to win, but I think it's indicative of the movement in the race. And if she's seeing that movement in Iowa, I think she's going to be seeing that late movement in Michigan and Wisconsin and Pennsylvania. So I think she's going to take those 3 blue wall states, and I think she's going to take North Carolina. And I think Trump will probably take Georgia and Arizona. And I think she'll end up with around 292 electoral votes.
I'm not surprised you think she'll take North Carolina.
I do. I've always said it's kind of one of those states that we always chase, like Texas or Florida, and it never pans out. But they have got a really strong state party over there. The Democrats do. And you have Charlotte and the suburbs that have grown tremendously. It's almost like Nashville and Austin, Texas, where it's just an influx of young people, professional people, and they lean Democratic. So I think she's going to eke out maybe a 0.5% win there.
I think the hurricane situation hurt her. I think it hurt the Democrat Party there.
It very well could. We'll see.
I just that's the way I see it kind of played out.
In the areas that it affected, I think we're already going to go for Trump.
They were, no doubt, but they got a lot of news time.
Yeah.
They got a lot of play time, and of course, over in that area, and during this political season, to get any type of political airtime, it's expensive, and they're wearing out all kinds of ads. But you're seeing this on Facebook, and this was it was a big deal. I think it was a big. I don't think it's over there. I'm not trying to belittle and say they're back to normal,
Right.
but anytime you have a situation like that happen, you see whoever the president setting administration is, they're going to take a hit on.
Oh, it's taking. There's never anything an administration or president can do that's going to be quick enough, that's going to be good enough, and that's just human nature.
Natural disasters will affect your numbers.
Oh, hey, if I was over there, I'd probably be in the same situation. Just one of those things.
You might even vote for Trump.
I didn't know. That's takes a lot. But
I want to ask you this: what are the surprises? I know we talked about Harris was kind of a surprise. She stepped in, but
yeah,
what else did you say that was surprises? That was one of those shocking all things. But there's always several in this.
It's been, of course, for me, it was with Biden withdrawing and becoming the nominee. Then you had the assassination attempt. I mean, this campaign, our campaigns are long in this country now. They basically start 2 years out.
Mm-hmm.
You had Biden and Trump both announcing early in 2023, and the action started in the summer of this year with Trump and the assassination attempt, the debate, and then you had Biden withdrawing, Harris getting the nomination, and then kind of a second attempt on Trump. It's just
it's going to make a good TV miniseries.
Oh yeah, I mean, if you put it in a movie, a lot of people wouldn't believe it.
Yeah,
it'd be too far fetched.
It's too far fetched. It would,
but it's been wild. Yeah. It really has.
I think that this is going to be talked about for a long time in political circles. This era of political season that we're in. Just because I think there's a lot of things that's being tried, never been tried before.
Yeah.
Trump, served 4 years, been out 4 years, trying to come back for 4 more years. He's also 78 years old. I mean, you have all these things that are rolling.
He'll be the oldest man ever elected.
That's right.
So I know you guys were interested in President Biden's age for a long time. So now y'all are the old guy.
We're old.
And we're the youthful 60-year-old. If that can be. Look how good she looks back there.
Well, okay. I'm glad she's back there.
She ain't got her heels on because she's kind of short compared to Trump. I think that's kind of.
People can go online and look and actually see Joe peeking out of the bushes here, because it's actually, there's a little bit of a joke behind that, because Joe didn't get to get on the ballot this time, and I think he might be a little bit bitter about it. Maybe he'll put it in.
I'm kind of bitter about it too, but
his autobiography.
At the end of the day, you put it behind you and you go with what you think needs to be done. And in this case, I don't even think it's close, because, with everything that Donald Trump's done, we talked about it over the weeks. I think the president of the United States has to have a strong character. And this man has fundamentally disqualified himself from leading this country.
But what about Joe Biden's garbage statement? I mean, he literally called me garbage.
I don't think he did. From what he was saying, what I understood him to say is that the guy that was speaking at the rally, that was garbage, or he may have been calling him garbage, because he went on to say his terrible comments about Puerto Rico. I don't think he was calling every Trump person garbage. Biden, I mean, you may disagree with him over the years, but he's been a president that has served everybody. I mean, he's never talked bad about Republicans. He knows that everybody's going to have difference of opinions, but he's always, I mean, unlike Trump, who said that he may not send aid to states that disagree with him or talk bad about him, like Newsom in California, President Biden has served Republican states like North Carolina and Tennessee when disasters have happened. So, it was unfortunate that it got taken out of context, but it's politics.
Well, I'll quote him, because I looked at it. He said his supporters are garbage. So he didn't say the comedian.
It was apostrophe.
Garbage.
Supporters.
And then they even tried to scrub the record. Did you see that? Well, they tried to scrub the record.
It was an interpretation of what he said. I mean, it could either be supporters or, I mean, he clarified it immediately after. He never went on record calling anybody garbage. I mean, that's just not who he is. If we've had a president that's been bipartisan and easy to get along with over the last 20, 30 years, it would be Joe Biden. I mean,
I have to disagree with you on that one.
He's nowhere close to being any kind of a a radical like Donald Trump and demeaning people, things like that.
I don't think he's a radical as far as Harris.
Yeah.
Okay, I will tell you that I've never thought of him as that type of radical. As a matter of fact, they've attacked him over the years for all kinds of different things. We're in a political position for decades, like Joe Biden has been, and he's
50
been in
years.
politics for a long time.
About your age, he's been in politics.
I'm 46, so
Getting close.
he's been doing it all my life. He's there when I got started, right? But when you look back on them, they're going to be attacked for all types of different things, and you just see that for over the years. But Harris, I do see her as a radical extreme left. I do see that. I think Tim Walz was not a good pick for her for vice president. I think you guys have several people that she could have picked that would have been a better choice.
It'll be interesting if she loses Pennsylvania. A lot of people are going to look back and say she should have picked Shapiro.
One of the things that surprised me was I didn't think I was going to like J.D. Vance.
Yeah.
I did not. I thought Trump should pick Tim Scott.
Yeah.
I told people that.
Scott would be the pick.
Yeah. I thought he was going to.
Yeah.
And I guess behind the scenes, who knows? Maybe the chemistry wasn't there. It's hard to say why somebody wouldn't do that.
It's personal choice.
And they're going to be shoulder to shoulder for a few years when that happens. So you have to be able to work together.
That's
yeah. And so but I want to see Tim Scott. I think Tim Scott would have pulled a lot.
What happened to Mike Pence?
Why
is he not running with
He's
Trump
not in there, is he?
It's funny when you threaten to hang somebody, how things end up.
Did Trump threaten to hang him?
Well, I think y'all's people did. Hang Mike Pence was the chant on January 6th. Hang Mike Pence. Because Trump said he didn't have the courage to do what's right to overturn the will of the people.
So I'm going to tell you another surprise. One of the other surprises that I've told people outside even this radio show, and this radio show is as raw as it gets. If somebody can say they like it or don't like it, one thing about it, you have to say there's nothing else like it,
right.
Because we're not scripted here.
Yeah.
But one of the things that surprised me was when you told me that January 6th was one of the number one reasons, one of the number one priorities, issues. I'm sorry, thanks for the word. Issues that people would be voting on. I was surprised to hear that. I really was. I could see abortion. I could see the border. I could see the economy, but I didn't think
it's going to be interesting tomorrow because just as well as I do, around 6 o'clock tomorrow, they're going to release the exit polls from around the country.
Sure.
And it always gives, how do you rate Joe Biden, the incumbent president? Who do you think has the best representation on the economy? But it's also going to ask, what's your number one issue?
It will.
And it's going to be interesting to see that. I would say if it's immigration, it may be a good night for you guys. But if it's democracy or women's issues, it may be in Harris's favor. If it's the economy, who knows? Because the economy is improving. People are still mad about inflation, but I think that'll tell us a lot around 6 o'clock.
Oh, I agree. I'm looking forward to see that because I did not expect you to say that.
Yeah.
I would have expected maybe that would have been on the list, but I guess in my mind, I don't see it. I feel like Democrats see that to be more of a just severe, serious issue than Republicans do.
I think,
and I'm not trying to. Then I'm not even trying to downplay it. I'm really not. If I thought it was serious, I would tell you.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people they honestly thought that our country was in danger when I don't think so. I don't think our country is in danger when I see rioters in the street in Seattle, Washington.
Yeah.
Or any major city where they're rioting. Would I have walked in there? I don't think I would have walked into the Capitol. I did think about going on January 6th.
Yeah.
I don't think I would have. I seen videos where the police had opened it up.
Yeah.
There's reports where they told Pelosi, hey, you need to request National Guard. A lot of things took place, but one of the things I guess, and I want to be very clear on why maybe a Democrat might be listening and think, Brandon, why would you have this point? I saw people who were legal gun owners that didn't storm the Capitol armed.
Yeah.
If I was thinking it was insurrection, I would have to think if you own firearms, you wouldn't go there just to walk in the front door and foolishly put your feet on the desk of Nancy Pelosi or try to, I don't know. I don't like vandalism. I don't like any of that, period. But if you're going to walk in there, I just don't see that as an insurrection to where they were threatening, to destroy or kill somebody. I just didn't see that.
Well, I believe the reason why we think it's such a big issue is because it comes down to a fundamental belief in this country that we've always had, that no matter if you win an election or you lose it, you always value the peaceful transfer of power. And this was the first time in American history, and there's been some tough, bitter elections in our history, where a president said that it was rigged and encouraged his supporters to go to the Capitol and basically, I mean, you can say what you want to, but he said, we're going to go up to the Capitol and fight like hell. Those were his words. Rudy Giuliani said hand to hand combat. The words of a president matter, and they can move markets, they can start wars. And when he put that in people's minds, and he's still saying it to this day that it's rigged, and it's not rigged, and this election's not going to be rigged. We've discussed how secure elections are because with every Republican worker or Democrat worker, there's a check and a balance. So, in order for there to be widespread fraud, it just can't happen. I mean, it never has happened. Maybe except maybe in Chicago when Kennedy was elected, there were some issues there, but we have safe and secure elections in this country. And the reason this is so important to Democrats, because we fear when we lose the sanctity of our elections and the peaceful transfer of power, we're going to become a third world country. And if you can't agree to it's something as fundamental as that, how in the heck can we agree on issues like the economy and immigration?
Right. Well, and I heard a lot of Democrats say, well, Trump wasn't going to leave the White House and things, but he did leave the White House. He didn't stay. And I actually heard a interview he did yesterday. I want to say it was ABC, but I can't remember the interviewer. And I didn't hear it. Actually, I read it. So
Yeah.
let me correct myself. But he had actually asked Trump, he says, is there a possibility you could lose tomorrow? And he said, yes. The interviewer was like surprised
Yeah.
that Trump would say that, and Trump was like, "Well, anything can happen." He said, "I think that would be a bad thing, and
Right.
bad things do happen."
Right.
But yes, that's a possibility. I think people are so dead set that Trump will say that he lost or he didn't lose, even if he did. But um, I don't think so. I think that if he feels like there's a fair election, I think that he would just say I lost, and I think
Right.
that was a sign of that.
He's never exhibited that. I mean, every time he's been beat, even when he got defeated in Iowa in the 16 Iowa caucuses by Ted Cruz, he said it was rigged. I mean, this is a guy that lost an Emmy with The Apprentice and said the Emmys were rigged. And if he had lost in 16, I'm sure he would have said that was rigged. It goes back to the character of this guy. And this is not a guy that, if he wasn't the former president, you guys would not give him the time of day. I mean, because he's not on y'all's level. I mean, Republicans by and large are good people. They're God fearing people. I just hope to God if he's beat tomorrow, he goes away and you guys get you a new person to run the party and we can be done with Donald Trump and turn the page. Turn the page.
Well, I hope if Harris is beat tomorrow that she goes back to California.
Well, she will.
And if she ever gets in politics again, that she does it legally and does it through a legal election process and does just interject her name on the ballot. To me, that was kind of a scary thing. People talk about democracy. And I hear Democrats throwing that rock constantly. They're like, democracy is on the line. And I'm thinking that your candidate was not even elected.
Yeah.
And that blows my mind, Chris.
Well, it wasn't ideal. I
when
mean,
people say this democracy is at danger, and I'm
Yeah.
thinking you didn't even elect this person.
the whole situation wasn't ideal. Joe Biden had no intention of dropping out throughout the race, and he didn't have any intention of being the nominee. It just so happened that he was convinced if he stayed in the race, his age would be the major issue instead of Donald Trump being the major issue, and he withdrew. He didn't want to hurt the Democrats' chances of losing. I wish he would have stayed in, but I'm fully behind her now. It's going to be interesting to see tomorrow night, but I can assure you one thing on Wednesday morning, if we know who the victor is, Joe Biden will extend an invitation to him to come to the White House, and a peaceful transition will start. That's the character of Joe Biden. He actually certified Trump's win in 16 and presiding over the Senate. So I can assure you of that. And I hope Democrats and Republicans, if the opposite party wins and it doesn't go your way, that everybody stays cool, stays calm.
Me too.
Don't show your butt. I mean, man, we're all in this together, and we should at least say that we hope the president does well, ever who it is, because at the end of the day, when the president does well, our country does well.
We have to be able to work together,
That's it.
and our government is a reflection of our people.
Yeah.
And I feel like that if our people can work together, our government will work together. And I even want to do that on the local level.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
what do we got? We got a couple of questions.
Yeah, we got, and we'll get to the predictions in a minute too that you guys have posted throughout the day. But Jerry Bronner said, talk about abortion, and we've touched on that a little today. I think it's going to be a big issue across the country tomorrow. In some of the polls, it surprised me. It's been one or two or three top issues for voters overall. And I told you when we talked about this in depth 3 or 4 weeks ago that I believe that would be a huge issue in this race, and it's turning out to be because you're seeing every evening on the news in these states that are stuck that have passed abortion bans with no exceptions. You're seeing women dying, women almost dying. And there was one in Texas just over the weekend where a woman had, I believe it was a ectopic pregnancy, and the fetus was not even viable, and nobody would perform an abortion because they were afraid that they would be prosecuted. And she died. And this is happening all across the country, and it's really a shame because I've said before, nobody likes abortion. It's one of the worst things that can happen. But at the end of the day, there's realities like rape, incest, and there's medical emergencies. And I think those situations, as I've said, are best left to a mother, a doctor, and her God. And the way these legislators across the country have passed it, there's no room for exceptions, and they've made the rule for the woman.
Well, I'm gonna be politically incorrect, so brace yourself.
Uh-oh.
And I may even get some hate over it. But there's only, people will talk about rape and incest, but there is either consensual or non-consensual. That's it.
Sure.
That's it. And there's not a whole bunch of different variations of this. There's consensual, non-consensual, uh, and if someone dies, if a mother dies with a pregnancy, let me tell you, I think that's a terrible thing. I think it is absolutely terrible. I hate to hear that. And I have read some of these stories, and I will tell you, I want to challenge our listeners, go look at who's writing some of these stories. ProPublica has put a lot of these stories out. They are extremely left lean media. They're pushing these stories out because we can't armchair quarterback and say, well, she died because she didn't get an abortion. But I know attorneys personally that handle malpractice suits. Malpractice is a big deal. It's a big issue when it comes to OBGYN. It's a big deal when it comes to
Yeah.
birth, all that. Everything that happens with the child in the womb. And for Democrats to sit here and tell me they know she died because she didn't get an abortion is foolishness on their part. There is no way that ProPublica, and I've read their article.
Yeah.
Go look them up. Just type in ProPublica. They're the ones pushing it. They're extreme left wing media.
Well, I don't think we can. I'm not going to go on the record and dispute those women's accounts. I mean, they're heartbreaking. Like I said before to you, I'm somebody that doesn't hunt. I mean, I think life is precious for every being that God created, and could never personally recommend for my wife to have an abortion.
Sure.
I just couldn't. I mean, I fought for my dad when he was on hospice to live as long as he could, even when the doctors told me it was the end of the road. But I just, at the end of the day, I think we have to live in reality and recognize there's certain circumstances. And, I'm kind of where Ronald Reagan was, Bill Clinton was, and even Melania Trump. Abortion has to be legal, safe, and it has to be rare. And we should encourage adoption. We should make sure that anybody that wants to adopt a child should, and it should be easier. And we shouldn't discriminate against gay couples that want to adopt. I know that's one thing that Republicans have fought in this country is for gays to adopt. But if a child can be born and given a good home, I think that should be given preference over a woman discarding the child's life. So if we're going to, pass these abortion bans across the country, we need to strongly push adoption rules and, encourage adoption for everybody. Don't discriminate.
I'm gonna share a story that he would share himself, and I think he shared it on this radio show, not on this show, but on the station. He's a good friend of mine. He's Kip Tapley. He's our
Yeah.
state representative here, and he told it publicly. So I'm going to put it out there. And if he gets mad at me for saying it, I'll take the hit. But I don't think he would, and I don't think his family would. He is not even 30 years old, and he has told the story in public where his mother was told, "You need to abort this child.
Yeah.
You need to." A doctor, in the profession, told them, and I want to say they even got a second opinion. You need to. You're running the risk of the child. You're running the risk of your life. You need to abort this child. So for every story someone can give me and say that somebody died, which is terrible, but I don't think it's man's right to take life. I believe in God. I believe in a higher power. I don't believe people accidentally die. I'm just going to tell you, I don't. I believe people are murdered.
Yeah.
But when they die of natural causes, I believe that I trust in the hand of God. That's me. I can't say it any other way.
Right.
But Kip Capley will tell you himself that He was born. His mother chose not to have an abortion. Thank God. And she said, "No way. God gave me this child. I will not abort this child, and I will fight for his life." So I want to put a spin on from another point of view. You know, it's not unusual to see mothers that lay down their lives for their children.
Yeah.
It's not unusual. It would not be far fetched to say a mother ran out in front of an oncoming traffic instantaneously to save a child's life. It is in us and ingrained in us as parents, and I'm a parent. And even when you become a parent, you'll fight for other people's
Yeah,
kids.
yeah.
It happens
It's an
because
instinct.
it absolutely. And I don't. The spin on this is I see more of mothers on from my side that say, you know what, I would die for my child before I would lay their life down.
Oh yeah.
And you're making a choice. It's
Yeah.
literally saying the woman has a right to choose. I don't think a woman has a right to choose. I believe that child is a gift from God, and I believe all life comes from God.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I'm not going to ever encourage abortion. I think it's something that should be avoided at all cost. But I think there's certain circumstances where has to be an option.
I'll challenge your listeners to this, and I'm about to be very politically incorrect here tonight, but we're getting near the end of this, and so I'm not afraid. I'm not ashamed. The Satanic Temple, which I'm a Christian, the Satanic Temple has taken abortion rights and made it a religious freedom issue. Yeah. If you don't believe it, go look it up.
Yeah.
They perform seances over these mothers. I saw politicians have been kicked around for saying that it's child sacrifice. I'm not the one that says it. Satanic Temple, and don't argue with me. Just go to their website and look.
Yeah.
They've built abortion clinics, and it's really easy to find. And they've made this a religious rights and not a women's right to choose. So I challenge Christians that are listening to me. It's like, okay, well, I believe in our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. I'm an unapologetic Christian. There's a flag has to go up for a Christian that could side with the Satanic Temple on the issue. I think Christians need to really take a
Yeah.
step back and don't take my word for it. Please
Yeah.
go to their website. This is all online. They don't hide it. They're actually lobbying and they're fighting for this right, and it's a religious freedom right for the Satanic Temple.
Well, I don't know anything about that. I'll have to plead ignorant on that. I'll
to you
take
after
your
the
word
show.
for it.
You got to say there's one thing. Everything I talk about on the show, I send you when it's over.
Oh, absolutely.
I'll send it to you whenever we leave the show today.
Absolutely. One thing that I wanted to talk about just for a second is, and it's something that's really started to concern me, is the involvement of Robert Kennedy in Trump campaign. And Trump, you don't see this often. Trump actually had to walk something back that Kennedy said the other day. Kennedy said that, of course, Trump said that he's going to turn Kennedy loose on food and health and some other things if he's elected. And yesterday, Kennedy said that Trump was on board with taking fluoride out of water. That he was looking at pulling some of the I guess licenses on vaccines. Um, that's really concerning to me from a public health perspective. And I'm not somebody that is big for mandating everything. I think we went through that with COVID shot and everything else. But Robert Kennedy has been disavowed by just about every public health expert in this country. He's been disavowed by his own family. And for him to be given basically carte blanche with the Food and Drug Administration is scary to me. And I don't know about you. I don't know if Robert Kennedy could even get confirmed by a Republican Senate to be in Trump's cabinet. So,
I don't know. I don't know if he could get confirmed or not.
yeah,
But I will say that he is hitting a lot of issues that I think concerns a lot of people. You see people now and they're really talking about organic food. What is our point with our organic food? It really goes down to a limitation of what type of pesticides can be used on our food
right,
products. Which I'm going to tell you, Chris, I'm not crazy about Roundup being on my corn.
right,
But it is.
yeah,
We all eat Roundup corn. Unless you're growing it in your backyard, you're eating a
right,
lot of Roundup corn. Um, but he takes the fluoride issue as another step. Fluoride is poison. It's poison. If you go look on your toothpaste, go open your cabinet up, pull your toothpaste out, and it tells you if you ingest this, you need to call the poison control. Okay, so uh, that's something you need to think about. Why do we need fluoride? Fluoride was put in our water system to help oral health and help teeth. Right. That's today with what we have as far as our I don't even know the terminology I'm looking for, but with oral health that we have in this country, with the availability and inexpensive toothbrushes and toothpaste and what we have, it's not a necessity anymore, and it is poison.
Yeah.
I don't want poison in my water, period. And I would, the question, underlying question, goes back on all these issues that Kennedy's bringing up is, why are we seeing so many children with autism? Why are we seeing children who have peanut allergies? Chris, I'm not that old. I know my kids think I'm old. They say I grew up in the 1900s.
Yeah.
But when I grew up, peanut butter and jelly sandwich was the staple food of all the children in grade school.
Yeah.
If you send a peanut butter and jelly sandwich to the public school systems now, you will probably kill a child. And we have to ask the question, why? And Kennedy's bringing it up like, why are we not talking about this? Why are we not
We can
talking
talk about it,
autism?
but at the end of the day, we need to listen to health professionals. You know, when they recommend vaccines, when they recommend things to be in water, you know, I'm not an expert, but I do trust experts. I mean, doctors, dentists, scientists, they have on its face, no reason to
Sure.
lie about these things. So if it's between Robert Kennedy, who admitted he had a brain worm, that's not me. That's Robert Kennedy saying that he had a brain worm that ate part of his brain, or doctors and dentists who have dedicated their entire lives for public health. I'm going to side with the people that actually know what they're talking about.
But they're not the only ones that say it's okay. There's a lot to say it's not okay.
Well,
There's a lot to say that there's this is poison.
Yeah.
Period. I don't care how you look at it. You're ingesting poison.
yeah,
You can say, well, it's not enough to hurt you, but the heavy metals in vaccines, your body can't get rid of those.
right.
Once you have those injected into your body, you literally can't get rid of those heavy metals. Is there a safer way to produce vaccines? I don't know. I mean, I can't answer that question, but we need to be looking at public health and asking the question: why are we seeing 1 in 22 have autism in California? Whenever Robert Kennedy, his argument is 1 in 10,000 or 20,000
Yeah.
had autism in his generation. That I don't understand why that's a big deal to raise that question. But I hear Democrats going, I can't believe Robert Kennedy's saying this, and I'm thinking Democrats are all talking about health. They talk about health all the time. Most of the liberal friends I have are all about eating whole foods and eating non-GMOs, and I'm thinking, but there's poison in a lot of stuff that we're getting.
If he focused on things that made sense, it'd be one thing, but he is a complete conspiracy theorist. Like I said, he's been disavowed by every public health organization there has been. And, you know, we don't want an outbreak of measles or anything in this country because people start discouraging their kids from getting vaccinated. I mean, we look how many diseases we eliminated in this country with the polio vaccine, the measles vaccine. I mean, my lord, you see it all the time on the news of other countries where they have outbreaks of these diseases that we've eradicated in this country. So, man, I don't.
Well, but they were doing a live virus at that point, and they weren't doing mRNA. And whenever we were younger, we were getting a half a dozen vaccines, and now you have children getting 70 vaccines. You have to. So here's what you do when you have a problem, and you're like, we didn't have a problem when we were doing this, but now we have a problem when we're doing this now. You have to look and say, what's the differences? If you're going to solve the problem, Chris, you got to say, what were we doing different that might be causing this? And
Yeah.
I would like to see them do
Or is it
more
more just more aware
investigation
now?
more aware. And I want to ding you, and I want to do this in the nicest way possible. I do not mean this as an insult because I appreciate the respect you and I have for each other in conversation. But I talked to you a few weeks ago, and we talked about firearms, and the experts will say that a AR-15 is the most deadly weapon on the face of the planet. It's a military grade weapon. I brought ammo in here and showed you the difference, and I'm thinking it's not.
Yeah.
But experts said if you listen to them and they tell you, hey, we know what we're talking about, when they really don't. Or we talked about AR-15s. We were talking about deer hunting, which is the deer season.
Yeah.
And I don't think you're going to find a lot of deer hunters that choose AR-15 as their firearm of choice because it's not powerful enough to kill a deer. But yet you hear the argument on the liberal side is like, well, they're so powerful they destroy the deer.
Yeah.
And I can disprove that and 100% disprove it. So I'm not really concerned about what a lot of the experts say. And I want to challenge the Democrats on that because I feel like a lot of Democrats that I know, they follow what the experts say. It's like, folks, listen, God gave us enough sense
Yeah.
to be able to take care of ourselves. God gave us that. I don't need a person to come in and try to educate me on, they're like, this is poison, but it's not going to hurt you. Hold on just a minute. We need to talk about
Well,
this.
chemotherapy's poison too.
It
But
is.
serves a purpose. And
But if you took
you've got to
chemotherapy
listen.
and you weren't sick,
I mean, in these situations,
hold on. If you took chemotherapy and you weren't sick, did it make you sick?
well, I'm sure it would.
That's
It
right.
makes you sick while you got
That's
cancer,
exactly right.
but it serves a purpose, just
It
like
does.
fluoride does. I mean, these things have been studied. There's consensus on it, and I understand consensus sometimes can be changed over years, but at the end of the day, I rely on public health experts. If I'm sick, I'm going to go to the doctor. And when they tell me what's wrong and what I should do, I generally listen.
Sure.
And I'm just afraid if we get into a pattern where we're questioning everything, you're going to start seeing public health issues pop up. I don't want that. But I told the folks on Facebook earlier that we would look at some of the predictions that we had.
I got you.
And I'll run through those right now. And these came from WLX's Facebook page earlier. Lee Whitley, he predicts Kamala Harris is going to win by a lot tomorrow.
Okay.
Uh, Kristen Woodall says Trump all the way.
So, Kristen.
Tanya Cora Moore says she's on the fence, and there's only one issue that I would vote for Kamala for. I agree with the news that if a woman gets out and vote, we will have a woman president. They want Roe v. Wade back to the way it was, but on the other hand, she was vice president to Biden, and we know how that turned out. So she looks like she's conflicted.
Sure.
Joey says, I hope it's Trump. We can't take 4 more years of her. Anthony Garland says Trump. Beth Pontus, I hope I'm saying that name right. She says Kamala in a landslide, and looks like Tiffany Lance said only if they cheat. So that looks like
Only
if the Democrats. cheat.
Okay, gotcha. Okay. Well, and talking about early voting, and we just spoke on this for a few minutes just before we started on the show. I think I looked it up, and I could be wrong. I don't have the article in front of me, but I had seen that early voting was down 13% in Davidson and Shelby County.
Yeah.
And I believe that that's because Democrats are not excited about their candidate. I mean, you're here tonight,
Yeah.
and I didn't ask you to do this.
Yeah.
We both agreed, hey, we're going to bring some props. If you're not looking online, I'm wearing a Trump hat. Chris is wearing a Harris Walls hat. I'm wearing a red tie and a white shirt. Got Trump behind me in the trash man uniform.
Yeah.
He's a working man, and he's got Harris behind him over there behind Chris. But you brought in Joe, and you cannot take away the fact that is a big deal.
Yeah.
I think that's a big deal to a lot of Democrats. I think Democrats haven't want to talk about it. Like, let's just don't talk about it. Let's look the other way. Let's whistle and keep walking.
Well, it's a touchy subject. I didn't like the way they treated President Biden. I think President Biden's a good man. I think he's, a lot of people, or most people in this county is going to disagree with me, but I think he's been a consequential president. I mean, he took office at the height of the pandemic when it was we were losing 2,000 people a day in this country. He got shots in arms. He got people the checks they needed when the economy was going south. Unemployment was 7.4% when he took office. It's 4% now. The stock market's at an all-time high. GDP leads the world in our economy. They were able to pass historic infrastructure legislation. We've passed bipartisan CHIPS and Science Act that reinvested in those areas that you talked about last week to bring manufacturing back to the United States. Joe Biden's approval ratings are low. I think he's going to be a president that probably in 20 years, historians will look back on and say that, he did some good things. Afghanistan, people say it was messy when we got out. It probably was. There's no good way to get out of a war, but we're out. That was a war that lasted 20 years. I think most people would say we stayed there too long. And I think Donald Trump agreed there, but he didn't end the war. Joe Biden did. So he's done some good things. And I just hate the way it was done. Somebody that has served the country for 50 years and you throw him out because of one bad night. I didn't agree with it. It wasn't Kamala Harris's fault. I'm not going to begrudge her for it, but I have hard feelings for folks like Nancy Pelosi, that supposedly was Joe Biden's friend that turned on him. Nancy Pelosi's cutthroat, but I served in government for 16 years and been in politics a long time, and you have to have a little bit of loyalty to your friends. And I don't think he was given that by a lot of people.
I agree with you on that. I agree. It was not. I think the Afghanistan situation, you're giving him a lot of grace, and I know you love him.
Yeah.
I know you know him personally, and I appreciate the fact that you love him, but it was a disaster. When he pulled out of Afghanistan, it was a disaster.
I don't know how he
military
could end it.
officials, well,
Vietnam was a disaster when we left too, but we're glad we left.
okay, but here's the deal. you're comparing Afghanistan to Vietnam.
Yeah.
That lets you know how bad it was.
Oh, I mean,
I'm just saying, you
Joe
make
Biden
that
didn't
comparison.
start it.
I didn't.
Joe Biden didn't start the
Yeah, but when he
Afghanistan
come
war.
out of there, people died. I mean, I was working in the government at that time. I know people, Chris, personally,
Yeah.
who tried to get their interpreters
I
out of
know.
there. I'm not making this up.
I know.
I know.
It was a terrible situation.
I know. I was in the government. I saw that with my own eyes. People on the phone frantically. I work with a lot of veterans. 60% of guys I work with were veterans, and they told me, they're like, the guys I work with that fought for American freedoms, that stood right over there shoulder to shoulder, they're going to kill their entire families
Yeah.
because of what Joe Biden did. And I mean, you can't sugarcoat that,
Yeah.
Chris. I'm just telling you, it was a bad decision. He shouldn't have done it that way. I hate it. I don't think it was. I don't think he should have been removed from the ballot.
Yeah.
That was terrible. When we elect somebody in this country, Democrats or Republicans, neither one have the right to pull them off that ballot.
Yeah.
And that was a bad look for Democrats.
Well, he got 14 million votes in the primary. He had challengers. He had the guy Dean Phillips, from a congressman from Minnesota. He had Marianne Williamson and a couple more. He got 90% of the primary vote. So I didn't like it.
Sure.
But I'm not a kingmaker in the party.
That's right.
You want to read what Charles Tibbs said there?
Yeah, he said, Charles Tibbs said, nobody's excited about either candidate yet. Another election where we will be voting for the lesser of two evils. These are the only two candidates we can muster up to run our country? Question mark. Well, I think we could do a lot better, Charles, in a lot of fronts. I'll tell you what I think it takes. It takes unity, because we got to be able to get behind the candidates.
Yeah.
And we got to be able to get ideas that come to the forefront of the American people. We are divided on issues that we should not be divided on, and we have a hard time getting united on issues that should be really easy. The government should be, in my opinion, an institution that takes care of roads.
Yeah.
It takes care of schools. It takes care of things like that. We've got a government that's getting involved in everything from a marriage license certificate of couples, and it becomes very divisive.
Yeah.
And I believe the divisiveness is not an accident. I think it's intentional. I think to divide us is intentional. I know that you and I coming here and sitting down, people might look at us and go, "You guys are crazy. If you're a Democrat, why would you sit down and talk to me?" And I've been accused of being far right, and then I've been accused of being liberal, and I've been accused of being all. And I think I can't be all of it.
Yeah.
I can't be all of it.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you what I am. I'm a red-blooded American that loves my country. I'm a follower of my Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. I'm not apologetic. I'm unapologetic in all that. I love my family, and if I can get people to come together and get unity, it's got to start at home. I'll tell you this, Charles, I don't think you can't go take the castle if you can't run your own house very well.
Right.
If we want to do better on the state level, we got to do good on the county level. And if we do good on the state level, we can do good on the national level.
Yeah.
And we can't be looking over at everybody else and find out what everybody else is doing. We got to look at ourselves and say, how can we improve? I want to take responsibility. I really don't want to pass the buck on to somebody else. And I think that's what you're saying, Charles, is how we're going to take responsibility and come up with better candidates.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I agree. Like you said, it starts locally, because a lot of times, that's where the rubber meets the road.
Mm-hmm.
Those are the issues that are on the forefront of everybody's everyday life. When you pull out of your driveway, the roads, the bridges that you drive on, the schools that your kids go to, the jobs that are in the community, and who you elect in those positions matter. I would argue just about as equally as important as state and federal officials is your local officials.
Sure.
So I agree with that.
Saturday Night Live, I think the Saturday Night Live was a disaster. I think she would have done herself a favor if she wouldn't have got on there. I'm just telling you, Chris, it was bad. It was bad.
I want to have fun.
It was bad.
Well,
it wasn't even fun.
Not as bad as y'all's Puerto Rican joke that the comedian did.
I know, and then Joe come out though and one up us. Listen, I'm going to tell you, you got to admit, Chris, it was hilarious when Trump pulls up in a trash truck and he's wearing the vest.
The guy almost fell over opening the door. Did you see that?
Hilarious.
They want to talk about Biden's slow walking and everything. Trump grabbed for the door, missed the door, and almost fell over. Then he talked about it in the speech.
Well, it's probably the first time he's ever got in a trash truck.
Probably.
Chris.
I'd like to see him drive it instead of riding in it. But I've got to give him. I've never seen a presidential candidate in a trash truck or work a McDonald's drive-thru. So.
Well, you know what? I think he's trying
be a convicted felon. So there's
to relate. He's trying to relate with the American people.
He can relate.
And I can tell you right now that he relates with a lot of folks. And to go out there and actually get in there and actually serve at McDonald's, and people say it's a political stunt. what's not a political stunt in politics? I mean,
Everything
Saturday
is.
Night Live was a political stunt.
Yeah.
I mean, it's all political stunt. And we try to get all of our creativity together. I mean, you and I are sitting here
Yeah.
with clocks behind us as a political stunt.
Yeah.
It might encourage one or two people to go vote
Yeah.
in the next few
Wayne
days.
Berry's got a good point here, and something I was thinking of. He says Biden's choices on how to execute a withdrawal from Afghanistan were severely constrained by the conditions created by Donald Trump. The Trump administration gutted the refugee support services and halted the processing of special immigration visas for thousands of Afghans seeking evacuation because they work for the U.S. government, leaving a massive backlog. Says it's equally between the Trump and Biden administration. Of course, this was Trump's plan to withdraw. I mean, it was actually supposed to be done earlier. I think April of that year,
Trump
21.
wanted to withdraw to Afghanistan.
And Biden actually pushed it back to August or September. So, I mean, he's right. It would have been it's hard to say if those people would have been killed under Trump. I'm not saying that, but there's no good way to end a war. It's going to be messy, and you just have to hope for the best. I'm glad we're out.
I will tell you, I think whether you agree, whatever your stand is on it, I think factually speaking, I think Biden took the blame for it.
Yeah. Oh yeah, no doubt.
I mean, I don't.
That's when his approval rating started to dip.
It really tanked. Now Harris's approval rating has never been good.
Yeah.
She's never had a strong approval rating, and I question the approval rating that I saw. I just can't believe it. I think her approval rating, and don't quote me, I've not got it right in front of me.
It came up.
But in 1 month, they tried to say her approval rating jumped like 16%. Those are inflated numbers. I mean, come on,
they might be.
We're not going to start liking you that much in 30 days.
But in her defense, she's vice president. Most people don't know what the hell she does, what she stands for. And this is the first time they've really.
I'll agree with that statement, Chris. I'll agree with you on that one.
They've never really seen her as the main act, and they've got to see her, and they've liked what they've seen. I mean, she's went from 39% up to close to 50. So, I mean, she must be doing something right. I don't think this would be a close race if people didn't like her. I mean, most people thought that Kamala Harris wouldn't have a chance. But now I hear Republicans say, well,
I think a lot of
close.
I think a lot of Democrats are voting against Trump.
Well, they are.
I don't think they're voting. So here's an issue I think we're witnessing. I think Democrats are voting against Trump if they're going to go vote, but they're not excited about their candidate. I think Republicans are excited about their candidate, and they're also voting against Harris. And I
don't know how you can be excited about a guy that's been convicted of 34 felonies and been adjudicated for rape and all this other stuff. I mean, that's another question for another day. But
you talking about Bill Clinton? I'm sorry.
Bill Clinton's never been convicted of anything.
Bill Clinton was impeached.
Wow. Donald Trump was impeached twice
for perjury.
Bill Clinton was
in Bill Clinton's day. They didn't come after presidents, so they've come after Trump. And they have. Listen, here's the thing.
Why is Trump?
They've searched his house. If he's doing anything illegal, here's what I'll say for the Democrats: if he's doing anything illegal, they have searched his properties. They have gone through everything he.
They searched Joe Biden's properties too,
and they found documents that shouldn't have been.
And he gave them back.
That was by the Corvette that he rode around with Jill in, wasn't it? While she was still married.
Hey, they were locked up because he ain't gonna let anybody near that Corvette.
Right. Him and Jill dated in that Corvette when she was married to her first husband.
Okay.
That's true story.
The documents I tell you in his house wasn't in the bathroom like they were at Mar-a-Lago, so there's that.
So, but it's at the end of the day, it's just like this and that.
Donald Trump is the only president in American history that's ever been indicted, and he just wasn't indicted. Once he had 84 felonies, he's been convicted. I just can't believe. I never thought that the party would go along with it after 2020 when he got beat and everything aftermath. But here we are, and he stands a 50-50 shot of being elected.
He's got a good chance of being president.
But I don't think he's going to make it. I think it's going to be a close race, but I think Harris is going to win. And like I said, whoever who wins, I hope the nation will rally behind them, and we can get past at least somewhat of the division.
Well, I want to tell you thank you. People don't know if they listen on the radio. Chris and I, we try to shake hands at the end of every one of these, and because we want to leave and be respectful of each other, even if we don't agree on opinions. I hope that if I needed Chris in emergency, he would call me, and I could call him. He could call me in a case of emergency.
Like I've told you,
we're neighbors. We are both Lawrence County citizens.
It's like I've told you, Brandon. I mean, I've gotten to know you over the past several weeks, and I think you're a good man. I think you're better than Donald Trump. And that's why I just can't understand how he's y'all's nominee, because the people of the Republican Party, especially around here, are a lot better than the man that's representing your party.
Well, folks, go out and vote. this next week we will have a lot of events to talk about. Next Monday, we'll be back in here on Monday at 5 p.m. You can look it up on WLX Facebook page, WDXC.com. Please go look it up on YouTube. Send it, share this out with your friends. We've had several shows. Chris, I appreciate you.
Depending
I'll let
on
you close it out.
Yeah, depending on how it goes tomorrow night, I may or may not be with my therapist the rest of the week. But either way, I think it's going to be a good race, and it has been a close race, and I've really enjoyed the last several weeks. And I want to thank WLX for giving us the opportunity.
Absolutely. Freedom of speech. Thank you, WLX, WDXC.
Absolutely.